You can now get a 30-day trial to experience The Athletic for free. Visit the link in the description below to try it now.
Hello, I'm Alex, I'm an analyst at Tifo and welcome to Tifo IRL. Today we're going to be having a quick look at Man United's deep build-up issues. A lot of Manchester United fans have rightly pointed out that the team would benefit from acquiring a defensive midfielder. Now, there are probably various reasons why this didn't happen, not least the outlay on Jadon Sancho, Ronaldo and so on. But defensive midfield has been an area of concern for United for a number of seasons. And one of the reasons is Scott McTominay and his inability to leave the cover shadow. Now, what do I mean by cover shadow? In simple terms, it's this. That is a pass that is on, okay? So there's no issue here at all. If a player stands here or here, then McTominay is in the cover shadow. That means that basically the opposition player's position prevents McTominay from easily getting the ball. If he shifts to this side here, he is out of the cover shadow. So McTominay spends a lot of time in the cover shadow. Now, if you look at the game that Manchester United played against Everton, first sort of 45 seconds of that, you'll see United trying to progress the ball from deep and McTominay wandering around in such a way as to basically make himself unavailable as a pass receiver. So if the ball comes out like here to there, Lindelof's obviously looking to pass, but McTominay will usually find himself sort of here. If these players come and press here like this, maybe Fred will move up this way, Lindelof passes to Maguire because there's better passing angles. McTominay has this kind of tendency to wander into this space. So wherever the opposition are pressing, McTominay is finding himself behind that player. It's almost like he's making a choice to actually mark that player in case the player intercepts the ball and, he's then in a position to make a challenge. The reason this is a problem is that if your deepest pivot midfielder here like this is consistently putting themselves in a position where they can't receive the ball, that means that you're either looking for riskier passes upfield, which again can be squeezed down, or you're having to go wide like this, which means that the opposition can start squeezing up. Opposition teams love pressing in the wide areas because that touchline there will act as an additional defender because it's a whole area of the pitch that the player in possession or the player receiving the pass can't go into or can't pass into. So McTominay needs to find himself in positions out of the cover shadow. Now, there are a couple of times where actually he's really quite good at this, and this is something that United do in deep build-up when they have time and space. So if the opposition are sitting off a little bit, what they'll look to do is push their fullbacks up. This is a pretty typical kind of thing. So we'll move these guys into this position here. And then if Lindelof moves into the middle here and Maguire takes up this position, McTominay can drop into this space here. All of a sudden, McTominay operating effectively as like a third centre-back, a right-sided centre-back in a three, feels much more comfortable. Obviously, he's going to be in a position to receive the ball here because if teams are pressing super tight like that, that's quite aggressive and probably not a great idea against United if they can hit it long and they have all that attacking talent up front. So they tend to sit off a little bit more. Then McTominay is in a position where he can pick a longer pass like this, and he actually has almost a 82% passing accuracy for passes over 30 yards, which is pretty good. Or he can carry the ball forwards like this, and then look for simple passes to Wan-Bissaka, or maybe if Fred drops in here, simple pass like that. But by carrying the ball forwards, he gets United a little bit more on the front foot. What's crucial about this, though, is that when he drops into that right-sided centre-back position, the player's in front of him. So the opposition players that might be pressing him or might be blocking lanes, he can see all of them. And that seems to be maybe like a comfort zone for him. He's able to assess the situation and make decisions that he feels more comfortable with where he passes or when he carries. The other area of the pitch that McTominay is actually really effective in is higher up like this. And one of the reasons for this, and I think this is a really interesting point to make about McTominay, when he was a youth player coming through the ranks at Manchester United, he was seen very much as a central midfielder, but an attacking one. So he would sometimes play as a 10, he would play maybe as a free 8, And interestingly, after he lost a whole season to injury in 2014-15, when he grew a foot in a year and his body kind of struggled to catch up and compensate, he actually was deployed as a striker quite often. The reason this is interesting is that when he's in this sort of area up here, and he's able to make like little quick passes and take return ones there and then burst through in this general direction, he feels a lot more confident as a player. He's actually really good at little bits of skill, you know, a back heel to release Aaron Wan-Bissaka out on the right-hand side, or quick 1-2s, and he can use his physical presence to burst through. And that's because his instincts, when he was a youth player, as a player developing at Manchester United, were geared towards this end of the pitch. This is where you would find Scott McTominay. You'd find him as a striker, or you'd find him as a 10. The problem that he has in the current setup, and it's also worth bearing in mind that he played under Jose Mourinho, who obviously kind of privileges a certain kind of physique in a player, is that United have tended to see him back here. Now, some of that is to do with the fact that he's 6'4" and he's quite good at tackling, and he's got that kind of spirit, that combative quality. He's a vocal player on the pitch, and having that leadership in this area and that physicality and that defensive work is actually pretty useful. But what it means from a passing perspective is that he's not always in this right centre-back slot where he feels comfortable because the game's ahead of him, and he's not higher up the pitch acting as a kind of physical link player, bursting through, finishing chances, getting in the box and being a threat, which is the other thing he's really comfortable at. So the problem is not really Scott McTominay. Scott McTominay is a good footballer being played in the wrong position, effectively. And that's because United haven't looked at defensive midfield as an area of weakness, and they haven't sought to upgrade him. And also because he's being crowded out further up the pitch by attacking players of a higher quality. I mean, Scott McTominay is not bad, but he's not as good as Bruno Fernandes, say. United also generally aren't playing a back three where he could fit into that right-sided centre-back slot. There are a couple of interesting stats, and I'm going to go to the notepad so that I make sure I don't forget them. If you compare him with Jorginho and Rodri, who are two deep-lying, creative kind of defensive midfielders, the sort of player that maybe United would be looking at, what you actually see is that Scott McTominay receives and makes more progressive passes per 90 than either of them. And progressive passes are passes that advance the ball forwards and usually take a couple of opposition players out of the game. But what's really interesting is that he actually gets the ball an awful lot less. So Rodri is getting it nearly 65 times per 90, Jorginho 55 times per 90. With McTominay, that's all the way down to under 50. So he's getting the ball a lot less, and also the passing accuracy with which he receives the ball is considerably less. So passes received by Rodri, 96%, passes received by Jorginho, 97%. With McTominay, that's down at 90%, and that's partly because he's putting himself into awkward positions, but also because where he's most effective, and this is where he's making and receiving his progressive passes, is actually up here, not all the way back here. So what does that mean for Manchester United? Well, they need to upgrade in this position. Scott McTominay has flaws when he's playing as a defensive midfielder. He would be better served further up the pitch in a more attacking role, and obviously the issue here is that United have all of these attacking players. They're not going to play a three-man midfield where McTominay could play on the right-hand side of a three and be that aggressive, pushing up 1-2s, breaking into the box kind of midfielder, because Bruno Fernandes has the 10 slot and that requires a double pivot. They're also not going to play three at the back. And that means that McTominay is basically in a quandary. He's playing in a position that doesn't suit him. Manchester United really need to upgrade that position, and it's kind of unfortunate for McTominay. He's a good footballer, but he's being played in the wrong place to get the best out of his skill set.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is where the Manchester United reporters revealed the truth behind the club's Jadon Sancho transfer fiasco, where the Tottenham reporters brought you news of Gareth Bale's return before anyone else, where the Chelsea reporters told us 3 days before his sacking that Frank Lampard was on the verge of losing his job. And you can try it now for free for 30 days. See the link in the description.